YouTube, Shokugeki no Soma. I wonder if I'm starting off too fast when I press the video, or whatever. I guess I'll fix it in the editing. Anyway, Shokugeki no Soma, chapter 221. Now, I've never actually spoken about this before, but man, I really like the judges. If there's one thing about Shokugeki no Soma, is that they always deliver on entertaining judges. Like, seriously, we had Alice's mom as a judge who, spoke really perfect Japanese whenever she was studying her food or giving her an assessment on a certain ingredient. And then you have Anne here, who all of a sudden gets drunk just off of 1 cup of sake. She's a huge lightweight, and all of a sudden her senses are heightened. She's a stricter judge. She knows which ingredients are going into which part of the cooking, and she's able to she's a stronger judge. She's able to read things a little better, and I think that's pretty awesome because she gets like that when she's drunk, and she's all laughing and giggling at Yukihiro Soma, and she plays around. And even before, you had the cool art with Anne pushing her her chest with the other judges in between. The judges are pretty interesting. They always have interesting judges when it comes to Shokugeki no Soma, and I really love that. I don't know why I never gave any fucking credit for that. It's just awesome with the comedy and great balance with it, and it's the hype and how serious the cooking show can get. Now, with this chapter, you have the way the pacing is set up. You have basically Megashima and Kobayashi going at the same time, and they're switching back and forth with their cooking. There are other times in the matches where it just shows all one chef, and then the next chapter will be all that chef. But here it's back and forth, and a lot of times when they do a back and forth type editing style with the cooks, that's normally when the cooking is at its best, or when the stakes are at its highest. I believe they did that with Haima and Yukihira, and I've always liked that style of cooking, or the way the panels would go back and forth between the cooks. And I'm pretty sure they're going to do that with the next couple of matches. Maybe, who knows? Or they're just going to flip-flop, or they'll just flip-flop the way they normally do. Maybe, but because this matchup is so closely contested, and it's the rank number 2, rank number 3, and there isn't exactly a clear-cut favorite, I like that they go back and forth. And I think the reason why they're doing this is because we've never seen these two cook before, and I think it's a good pacing mechanism to show their strengths and their character. Last week we had Kobayashi Rendu with showing who her full character is when it comes to cooking, and I thought that was amazing. And then now next week, we're going to get some insight on Megashima and his character. Here we had some insight on his cooking and his style. But next week, we're going to see the reason why he decided to help Yukihiro Soma. And I think that's really awesome because we get some more insight on how his character is, and how Yukihira's character is also, how he's able to convince this guy. Because we always know Yukihira has always been a very charismatic person. He's able to convince people who normally don't do things to get out of their comfort zone. And I think that's awesome. But here in this chapter, we see some more insight on Megashima on what he wants to cook. We know he's a ramen expert, and we're all interested in what he wants to cook. And we're thinking, typical ramen. But just like Kobayashi, he goes outside of the ramen, chooses African ramen. And I'm thinking, I have never heard of that before, ever. I've heard of people eating alligator meat, but I've never ever fucking heard of African ramen. That's the first time for me. And I think that's pretty awesome that it's so I'm going to go look that up now, see if that tastes any good, because I'm just a regular stateside man who just likes the old style of ramen. But here, African ramen is the first time I've heard of it, and I guess it just breaks down the walls of what I see as real food, or what I see as food that I would normally eat. But Shokugeki no Soma continues to introduce me to these new foods I never really thought about. You think of ramen, you think of China or Japan, the stereotypical type ramen. And even the side characters are like, ramen, does that even exist, Yukihira? I was I'm on your side, man, I never heard of that. And that is so fucking cool. And they have the art style, they show the alligator going up against the elephant. Of course, we know in real life, we know an elephant would trump the shit out of a fucking alligator. But anyway, they're going against each other, and they're cooking. Now, as far as the actual the dish, the main ingredient is red chili peppers, and they dump a shitload of it into their own dishes. And I'm thinking, fuck yeah, I love hot spices. And they're trying to figure out why are they putting so much chili into the ramen? That's gonna be a full-blown hot dish. And Rendu is also doing the same thing. they both have a similar style with the chili peppers, even though it is the main thing, but they're dumping a buttload on them. And what I think about was really interesting in this part of the chapter was the characters themselves, Rendu and Megashima. How Megashima kind of predicted that Rendu would do this because that is her personality and character. So he decided to go with the same attitude. Otherwise, she would have overpowered him. And Rendu they shows a panel. It's like, oh, you're acting like you know me, like you know who I am. And then the next thing she says, you really do know me. And she gives this this weird grin. So to me, it seems like these characters might be a little closer on maybe on the personal level, maybe closer friends than normal, because why would they show a big panel of her saying oh, you really do know me? That's just interesting. I could be completely off base on this, because to me it seemed like she was closer to Ishii, who was the first seed. But here with this with this panel and with this chapter, maybe she might have been more closer to Megashima as a friend, maybe possibly romantic vibes. I'm not exactly sure, but that was just an interesting panel that I'm kind of curious about in the future. And even more so, it goes more into it with it goes more into when she talks about hey, why did you decide to join Yukihira's side? You've always been the type of person to not really be interested in matches. What changed? And then Megashima goes in, he starts to give his explanation. Now, he was really inspired by his drive and his motivation. And that's when it leads into next week's chapter, where we see a flashback of Yukihira Yukihira trying to convince everyone to join them. He didn't really have to convince Ishiki and Kuga. They were already on board. Mimasaka Subaru, he was on board automatically because he owes a debt to him. But then Megashima, he was the tricky one because he didn't really know who he was. So he gave his explanation, and it shows in the panel, oh, I refuse. And so next we're going to see how Yukihira tried to convince him. And I think that's really going to be awesome and cool. It's going to add more character development to Megashima and more character development to Yukihira. And overall, character development for these past couple of chapters when it comes to introducing new characters, because it's been really good, because the hype for these guys have been really built up, especially for Rendu, and she's lived up to it big time. And they're balancing out really well in this chapter. Back and forth battle, panel to panel. They're both showing their own cooking styles. And I really love that about this chapter. It was an excellent chapter. It really was awesome. I might have given it a 5 out of 5, but those 5 out of 5 chapters are insane chapters. I'm going to give it a 4.8 out of 5 stars. But it was just a really good chapter just because how executed, it was really well executed. I'm trying to get my words out. And really good paced. And I'm looking forward to how the next chapter goes. Let's see how this one turns out. Hope you guys liked the review. Fantart out. And if you guys like my videos, please subscribe to my channel. Later. Bye.